Hello and welcome to A Gypsy's Kiss. I'm Shelley Carney and today we'll be talking about important words, not far but too far to walk. Let's get started. All right, not far but too far to walk. What the heck does that mean? Well, we were watching in the member vault, we were watching the video at Moby Dickens, Forrest Fenn talking about the treasure hunt as he was doing a book signing event at Moby Dickens in Taos, New Mexico back in November of 2013. And there were some things that stood out to me that I started to put things together that maybe didn't seem like they went together, but to me, I felt like intuitively these things go together. So let's talk about those things, beginning with the Forrest Fenn at Moby Dickens Bookshop interview, which you can find on YouTube on a Gypsy's Kiss channel. I figured that I could walk to the South China Sea in a month or 6 weeks. So the question is, am I going to take the challenge that will never in a million years be offered to me? Or do I remember my wife and 2 kids at home? So what do? I decided it wasn't fair to my family. Apparently it was not far, but too far to walk. It wasn't fair to his family, even if he could do it. Another line from Moby Dickens. My father used to tell me, grab every banana, and he told me that 100 times. Finally, he and I collected arrowheads together, and we were thinking about going out to a friend's farm that was newly plowed to look for arrowheads, but it was drizzling rain. I didn't much want to go, but my father did, so we were discussing. He said, grab every banana. I said, Father, you've been telling me that for years. I said, I don't know what you mean. You know what he said to me? He said, now that you ask the question, maybe you're old enough to know. Pretty profound, huh? He said, the train doesn't go by that banana tree but one time. He said, you should reach out and grab every banana on the way back. I thought that was pretty good. Let me tell you, I've grabbed a few bananas in my time. So, the banana tree may not be there later, so grab every banana, right? It's not far, but it's too far to walk to get back to that banana tree. So get it while you can. Moving on. There are 9 clues in the poem, but if you read the book, there are a couple of good hints, and then there are a couple of aberrations that live out on the edge. And the reason I pulled this out of there is because Forrest Fenn talks a lot about the edge. How do you know where the edges are if you don't go out and look? Living out on the edge. He lives out on the edge. The edge seems to be another important thing that fits into this whole thing with the not far but too far to walk. Train doesn't go by that banana tree every time. Walking, the story about walking to the South China Sea, but it taking 6 weeks, which was too long for his family to be in suspense about whether he's alive or dead. Moving on, I had to make 2 trips because the thing weighs 42 pounds. It's small, but gold is heavy. When I hid it and was walking back to my car, I started laughing out loud and said, Forrest Fenn, did you really do that? But I had a hole card. I told myself if I decided later I didn't want to do it, I could go back and get it. But the more I thought about it, the more I said, yeah, this is perfect. He could go back to that banana tree and get those bananas back. He could go back in time and undo what he had done. But he didn't change his mind about placing the treasure. He left it there. He said, no, that's perfect. I really want it there. Kind of can see how these are all kind of fitting together. I don't know, maybe I think a little weirdly, but a little near the end of the Moby Dickens video, Toby asks this question of Forrest Fenn. Tell those in the audience who are not searching why the phrase "too far to walk" is so important. He asked it in a question type of way, like, will you tell, how about you tell those in the audience who are not searching why the phrase "too far to walk" is so important? I want you to go back and look at the video, and I want you to see Forrest Fenn's reaction when Toby asks that question. He sits forward, what? I didn't say it was too far, important. And he kind of gets very reactionary about it. That's always made me wonder. Every time I've seen that, it's been like, why did he react so strongly there? What was it that made him react so strongly? I didn't feel like Toby was being presumptuous. I didn't feel like he was being annoying. I didn't feel like he was being out of line. And yet Forrest Fenn reacted very strongly to the question. So I think it wasn't Toby. I think it was the question. He didn't want to talk about why the phrase "too far to walk" is so important. I didn't say that was important. Well, it's in the poem. You didn't even tell us it's in the poem. You didn't say that at all. You said it's the name of this book. And in the preface, I talk about what it means to say it's too far to walk. But you never said, well, because it's in the poem, which is what Toby was after. He was obviously after that. He was just wanting you to tell the people in the audience who were not searchers that obviously it's an important phrase because it's in the poem. But Forrest Fenn had this big reaction. What? Huh? And then he had to calm himself down, sit back, hide his reaction, and consider the response. And then he says, that part of my preface, I think, is a metaphor for my entire life. Again, he didn't tell us because that phrase is in the poem, which is all that we were kind of expecting. But instead he tells us, it's a metaphor for my entire life. Not far, but too far to walk is a metaphor for Forrest Fenn's entire life. Okay, interesting. Near the end, he says, I told this writer today she should be writing Encyclopedia Britannicas. It's no fun to read. Everything's there, but it's no fun. I said, when are you going to walk out to the pauses? How do you know where the edge is if you don't go out there and look? How do you know how far is too far to walk until you go check it out, where the edge is? We can look at the dictionary. The definition of to go too far is to do something that is not allowed. It's not allowed. This time you've gone too far. You've crossed somebody's boundaries. You've gone over the border. You've gone too far. You went where you were not supposed to go. You went beyond the gate that said no trespassing. You went too far. Don't go too far. Go far enough, right? But not too far to walk. Not too far. Okay, so walking back. We all know the phrase walking back. Definition of to walk back, a transitive verb, is to retreat from or distance oneself from a previously stated opinion or position. Here's an example sentence. Try not to say anything in the primary campaign that you might need to walk back in the general election. In other words, taking something back. Back up the truck. Back it up. Walk that back. Now that was more of a recent definition of that word, so that might not be useful in the description of not far but too far to walk. But I do think that you've gone too far might be useful. Let's look at this piece of an article that was in the Live Science magazine online in 2016. Does the universe have an edge? The cosmological principle states that the distribution of matter in any part of the universe looks roughly the same as in any other part, regardless what direction you look in. In scientists' terms, the universe is isotropic. doesn't have an edge. One analogy often used to describe this edgeless universe is the surface of a balloon. An ant on such a surface can walk in any direction and it would look like the surface was unbounded. That is, the ant might come back to where it started, but there would be no end to the journey. So even though the surface of a balloon is a finite number of square units, there's no edge to it, no boundary, since you can go forever in any one direction. In addition, there's no center, so there's no preferred point on the balloon's spherical surface. The universe is a three-dimensional version of the balloon's skin. It's an edgeless universe. There's no edge, there's no boundary, there's no border. Let's look at the big picture. Forrest Fenn often tells us to look at the big picture, right? So the definition of big picture is the entire perspective on a situation or issue, used with the, as in the big picture. So we want an entire perspective. You want to see the entire forest instead of focusing on the trees. Look at the big picture. All right, let's move into May 2017, the screening of the lore. Forrest Fenn answers, in today's world, what do you suggest we do? And Forrest Fenn says, I never wanted to break a serious rule, but I'll stretch the hell out of a few. I see so many people in today's society are going right down the center line, and they never know where the edge is. How do you know where the edge is if you don't go out there and look for it and see? And he talks about how he likes to bounce off the curbs. Now, this is not the only time he's used this phrase. You can look it up in Terry Scan. He's used this phrase in other interviews as well. This is another one of his favorites, that I'm not going to break a serious rule, but I'll stretch one. How do you know where the edge is? How do you know where the boundary is? How do you know where warm water halts until you go out there and look for it? Here's the thrill of the chase, page 91. After sitting on the edge of the waterfall and throwing rocks over the drop, the pilot said, let's go. The sound of the rushing water was stronger than the noise of the idling engine, and I was a little uncomfortable with the whole episode. He's sitting on the edge of the waterfall, throwing rocks. Sitting on the edge, where warm water halts. Goes over the edge. How do you know where the edges are? To go out and look. Page 136. Anyway, I've never been willing to stand idly by and be part of a forgotten history when I may be able to impact future events. My part will be very small in the big picture, but huge to me. So when he talks about the big picture, it's often history. The world, the history of the world is the big picture in this instance. Page 147. Maybe history doesn't want us to remember everything we've learned, and that's why the grass grows so tall over a French soldier's headstone in Vietnam. This came as a part, this is kind of the summary of this whole sitting on the edge of the waterfall, throwing rocks over the drop, and then he gets up to run to the helicopter and trips over the gravestone, and that's when he finds these French soldiers' headstone in Vietnam, and the grass was growing so tall over it, and this seems to be a very important theme for Forrest Fenn. Now I feel that my father is sitting on the edge of a cloud somewhere watching. Edge seems to be an important word for him. How do you know where the edges are? Sitting on the edge of a waterfall. Sitting on the edge of a cloud. Too far to walk in the preface. That part of the river was in the quietly forgotten western edge of Yellowstone Park. There were no roads, no trails, and no rangers to remind me that I wasn't supposed to do that. As he says, he likes to stretch the rules. Page 21. We sat on the edge of the canyon, and I decided to blow some dying rabbit sounds on my Weems varmint collar. I hope to attract a wily coyote or maybe a raccoon. Sits on the edge of the waterfall, sitting on the edge of a cloud, western edge of Yellowstone Park, edge of the canyon. Some words can be worth 1,000 pictures. Some words can be worth 1,000 pictures. I think he thinks that about the poem. We should be seeing 1,000 pictures when we read the poem. Page 258. The thought occurred to me that I may soon become an obsolete entity in my whole story writing process, and that bothers me a lot. I know my friends are talking about it. They whisper that I'm overly fretful about things I can't control, and that I may be heading over the edge a little. Maybe, but there are some adversaries to which I shall never yield. Age is one of them. Time is another. There are a few things that should have been done better along the way, so I want to go back and try again. But alas, the train only goes by that banana tree one time, so you had better have grabbed those bananas already. Once upon a while, page 73, I had the instincts of a jaguar and he didn't. Maybe that gave me a slight edge in areas where results could easily be measured. Edge. Page 74. Back to the tower I went, and with all the guts I could muster, there I stood with my toes on the edge of the top platform. He seems to be on the edge of things, right before something important happens, right before something dramatic happens. Here he's about to jump off a very high platform into a lake, and that involves an edge. Sitting on the edge of the waterfall is right before he discovers that graveyard. His father is sitting on the edge of a cloud because he's looking down at Forrest Fenn. But that's also a little bit dramatic because that's how he's picturing his father who has passed. All right, let's move into some quotes. Let's see, we have one from an article in HuffPost from September 17th, 2013 by Margie Goldsmith. Too Far to Walk is a scrapbook of memories. Some of the photos and drawings are a peep back into my early life and the way things used to be when gas was 11 cents a gallon, says Fenn. Others depict a colorful life lived out on the edge where the cautious and faint of heart fear to go. Or perhaps it's no place for the meek, out on the edge. The edge of what? June 13, 2014, Mysterious Writings. I have no real feelings about when the treasure might or might not be found, but eventually sounds too far away. Not far, but too far away. The treasure is there for the person who can find it, and I think that person will be positive in their attitude and deliberate in their actions. No one has any secret information that will take them to the hiding place. It's in the poem for all to see. Again, the words in the poem must be worth 1,000 pictures. But eventually sounds too far away. Too far. Not far, but too far. August 12, 2014, Mysterious Writings. There are, and I've used this quote so many times, we've probably all got it memorized. There are a few words in the poem that are not useful in finding the treasure, Phil, but it is risky to discount any of them. You oversimplify the clues. There are many places in the Rocky Mountains where warm waters halt, and nearly all of them are north of Santa Fe. Look at the big picture. Big picture. There are no shortcuts. Big picture. No shortcuts. Look at all of the time of history of the world. Big picture. August 13, 2014. This is an article in the Cody Enterprise. Buried treasure lures Yellowstone National Park hunters. Reached at home in Santa Fe, New Mexico, Fenn said he understands the treasure hunters had to be cited for violating park rules, but is not sure the penalty fits the crime. He said, I think banning them from the park is going too far. He said, in the big picture of Yellowstone, how terrible is it to have a metal detector in your backpack? So we got too far and big picture in this quote. They went too far. The park rangers went too far. All they did was have it in their backpack. They didn't even use it. They didn't harm anything, is his point. In the big picture of Yellowstone, in the world history of Yellowstone, how big a deal is it to have a metal detector in your backpack? April 27, 2015. This is a KOAT interview. I'm looking at someone, may find it tomorrow, and it may not be found for 1,000 years. I'm looking at the big picture. A lot of people who are searching for the treasure don't see it the same way I do. I'm looking at the history of the world. So whenever it's found within the history of the world is but a blip anyway. So it doesn't matter. May 10th, 2015. Gold treasure in the mountains, the Daily Star. Fenn said he isn't disappointed that no one has found his treasure. Quote, somebody could find it tomorrow and it may not be found for 1,000 years. I'm looking at the big picture. A lot of people who are searching for the treasure don't see it the same way I do. I would love if someone found it tomorrow, but if nobody found it for 100 years, that's okay with me too. I believe that this article was based on the KOAT quote, because they're pretty much the same thing. So just wanted to point out that big picture, the history of the world. And it doesn't matter if it's tomorrow or 100 years. It's but a blip in the history of the world, the big picture. July 16, 2016, Mysterious Writings. A polite-like email from Christy, who admits to being a desk person, prompts me to say that if you are walking long distances in search of the treasure, you're walking too far. Too far. Not far, but too far to walk. But not too far to walk. What does it mean, right? All right. April 2017, Dale Neitzel's blog, Scrapbook 182. Nature frequently takes away, and in doing so, she always looks at the big picture. 500 years from now, no one will remember the fires, but I'll still be thinking about that great little Viviage cabin that disappeared. In 500 years, he's going to be thinking about it? I don't know. Big picture, world history. I think we know what big picture is now. May 6, 2017, Mysterious Writings. There are many things I want to do now that I didn't do then. I want to fish every stream, catch every fish, sit under every tree, and hike the mountains I didn't hike. And I would like to get lost in the Gallatins again. That was the best. But for me now, it's too far to walk. So you better have grabbed every banana when you were there, right? Can't go back in time. It's too far to walk back in time, obviously. Can't go back. So here were some possible reasons a path may be, quote, too far to walk, unquote. The physical limitations of the person doing the walking. Basically the same as don't go where an 80-year-old man carrying a 20-pound load couldn't go. Don't go that far. You don't. When he answered Christie's email, he said you shouldn't be walking long distances. Just keep in mind, don't go where an 80-year-old man carrying a 20-pound load couldn't go, or somebody who's fairly overweight and can only walk about a mile can make it. Or another reason, the end goal is not worth the effort. But in the case of the treasure, obviously your effort will be worth the goal or the cold. Another reason, the way back might be too difficult. So grab every banana on the way, right? I could get there, but then I don't know if I could get back. It's all downhill on the way there, but on the way back it's all uphill. So maybe it's not far, but it's too far to walk because it's a round trip. Another reason, the person has too many other priorities. Let's look at the big picture. I have all these things going on in my life. I can't go back now to my past and get lost in the Gallatins again. I can't go back and fish every stream and catch every fish and sit under every tree and hike the mountains I didn't hike. It's too far to walk now. I can't go back in time. I have other priorities. Or years have passed, causing the person and the world to change too much to ever go back to the way it was. Like when he said the importance of not far but too far to walk was that it was a metaphor for his entire life. You can't go back. You can't go home again. You can't go back to being a kid. You can't go back to those times because you're a different person now. You've passed that banana tree. You can no longer get back to it. So, not far but too far to walk. In the poem, if we use it in the same context where Forrest Fenn has used it over and over again, it seems to be, to me, this last one. Years have passed, causing the person in the world to change too much to ever go back to the way it was. Do you remember when, in last week's video, where I had the quote where he said, most of the places existed when he was a kid, but the clues did not. Most of the places. Some of the things were new. Since he had been alive, they had occurred. So perhaps the world changed too much to go back to the way it was. What changed? Did it change before or after he hid the treasure? Is it different now than when he wrote the poem? These are some questions that we're going to have to figure out as we come up with our theories for searching for this treasure. All right, that's all I have for today and for the important words. Again, if you are not a member of the Member Vault, I do hope that you will join us there where we can have further discussions of these videos and these ideas, as well as our regular meetings every Tuesday and Thursday night that we have together to discuss the book, the poem, and Forrest Fenn video interviews, and so many other things. It's a great place to be, so if you'd like to join us, that's gypsieskiss.com to join the Member Vault. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next week. Bye for now.